Go!
He can make data funny. He has like memes. It's always a delight to have him here. I'm curious, how many of you saw the Barbie movie? Yeah, clap it up. You see the Barbie movie? How did you feel when you saw the Barbie movie? Just shout it out. Okay, I heard like one lone guy. Horrible. What? Sir, we have had enough of you, okay?
Oh.
I felt inspired. I felt motivated. I felt seen. And that is exactly how I feel when I hear Angela Yee speak. She held her own as the only woman on the Breakfast Club for 12 years. And we are in for a treat because we have her in the house here today.
Woo! Yeah!
She deserves some applause for that. And also, you know every boss Barbie needs a cool Ken. So we also have DJ Louis V, who is doing his own things. He is a program director, he's a DJ, he's an on-air personality in his own right. And we are so lucky to have them both here with us today. So to give them a proper introduction and bring them up to the stage, we have Heather Cohen, who is the EVP of the Weiss Agency.
Woo! Yeah! Oh, I'm annoying my shot. Hold on.
Hi everyone, good morning. It's great to see you. I want to take a minute to introduce or reconnect this audience with the Alliance for Women in Media and our foundation. I have served on the board for many years and currently serve as a Gracie Allen Awards co-chair. Mike McVeigh is in the room. I believe he's speaking at 10:30. He's another co-chair. AWM has been advancing women in media for more than 70 years through education, connection, and recognition. The most well-known recognition we do is the Gracie Awards, which has been celebrating outstanding programming and individual achievement by, for, and about women in radio, audio, television, and digital medias for nearly 50 years. It is our 49th annual Gracie Awards this year. As you know, the podcast space has been growing exponentially over the past several years, and we have created categories including host, co-hosts, producers, and opportunity for content in news and entertainment. We are thrilled to give Gracie Allen Awards to some of the most influential storytellers and also proud of giving recognition to content that is having a true impact. The categories for Gracie Awards entries continue to expand, and I am delighted to announce that we are launching a scholarship with Podcast Movement this week as an example of our mutual commitment to this space. Bringing up the next generation of women in media is at the core of what we do, and that includes scholarships. In partnership with Podcast Movement, one undergraduate student with an interest in podcasting will be given a $2,500 scholarship for the spring 24 semester. The AWM Foundation will manage the process, promote to schools, collect applications, and work together with Podcast Movement on finalizing the recipient. So thank you so much, Podcast Movement. I would welcome connecting with everyone here on ways to get involved with the Alliance for Women in Media, get your content entered for consideration, or start a scholarship in your company's name. I'll be happy to get you in touch directly with our AWM team, or go to allwomeninmedia.org. Now I have the privilege of introducing our fireside chat. Leading today's chat is DJ Louis V. He is a DJ, program director, radio personality, and music director at iHeart's 105.3 The Beat in Atlanta. He works in major markets all across the U.S. and is currently the official DJ for Dwayne Wade, for the Breakfast Club's DJ Envy's Drive Your Dreams car shows, and as the official DJ for the Way Up with Angela Yee show with Angela Yee at noon. He also has his own afternoon show Monday through Friday in Atlanta and has a syndicated mix show on weekends on iHeartRadio, heard worldwide. Rumor has it that he will be DJing the iHeart Party tonight, so I will be there. I've put in a few requests. I hope to see you there as well. Angela Yee is a businesswoman, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and highly decorated radio and podcast host. She is also one of the kindest and best humans that I've ever met. After more than 10 years as host of the nationally syndicated Radio Hall of Fame show, The Breakfast Club, Yee recently took to the airwaves with her own daily syndicated show, Way Up with Angela Yee, through Premiere Networks. She also is the host of the highly popular Lip Service podcast, which has been publishing weekly since 2015 and is with iHeartMedia. Angela is a National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, the recipient of 2 prestigious Gracie Allen Awards and the Air Blazer Award. Angela sits on numerous boards, including the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies, Nile Rodgers We Are Family Foundation, the Fund for New York City Housing Authority, and the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. He is an ambassador for the New York Public Library and BSC Global. As an entrepreneur, Angela is the founder of Cup Coffee Uplifts People, which has a flagship store in Brooklyn and can be found in retail locations all over, and she has some great news to announce today. In 2018, the New York City mayor officially designated August 28th Angela Yee Day. So next week, on Sunday, August 27th, we are celebrating Angela Yee Day, and I want to invite all of you to join us at Barclays in Brooklyn. It is going to be amazing. Without further ado, I'd like to bring up DJ Louis V and my dear friend and client, Miss Angela Yee.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah.
Sorry for that long bio. We're going to shorten it.
How you guys feeling this morning?
Woo!
And thank you to Heather. That's my agent. Okay.
Thank you all for being up so early to listen to us talk to each other. So, for those that don't know, I've known Angela Yee for like 13 years, a little over 13 years. It started from her beginning with the Breakfast Club and doing some events together, and full circle moment now, we're working together with her new show, Way Up with Angela Yee. I'm also one of the first markets to syndicate her show in Atlanta when it first kicked off in the end of January. So also syndicate the Breakfast Club there. So it's just good to sit across from you now and have this conversation with you, because this has been a long journey for the both of us.
Yes, thank you. I love to see that we came up in this business together. I think that's amazing. As a lot of people in this room, I'm sure you guys have known each other for years, and you never know who's going to end up sitting across from who.
Right. But normally you're the one interviewing us now. I get to sit and interview you. So
Guys, this is the harder lift right here. Okay.
And she reminded me. So let's get into it. With everything that you have going on, of course, people know you from the Breakfast Club and now Way Up with Angela Yee. Of course, both of us being affiliated and employees of iHeartRadio. Now is a situation where people might not know how long you've been in the podcast space. Of course, you know, podcasting now has really just taken off the way that it has, probably like the last year and a half, 2 years. But of course, a lot of people are familiar with it. But you've had Way Up with Angela Yee for a couple of months now, like 6-7 months going into it this year. But you've had Lip Service podcast for 8 years.
Yes, is anybody here familiar with lip service? It's a different time.
Yeah.
But when I first started doing my podcast, podcasting wasn't
Oh my gosh,
monetized so much.
Oh my god.
And so when I was doing it, I was really only doing it because I wanted to have a space that was separate from the Breakfast Club. I actually had a show on Sirius called Lip Service that was weekly. And I remember we interviewed Nicki Minaj, and she was like, I miss you on that other show you used to have, Lip Service. And I was like, you know what? Let me bring it back as a podcast. And so I did a couple of like standalone episodes, and then my friend who owned the studio was like, we should make this a real podcast and you should do it weekly. And it did take a minute to get consistent and start doing, because you know, people would be like, where's the episode? It didn't come out on time. And you can lose people that way, I think, not being consistent. And so when you decide to start doing something, know that the first literally years, we didn't make any money off of it at all. We really were just doing it to build something in a space that wasn't built out. Some people thought that podcasts wouldn't even be around, and now look, we're at the podcast movement.
Yeah, and then you've been in that space when you started, of course, again, 8 years ago, Lip Service. A lot of people are drawn to the viral, crazy sexual moments. Again, if you've never tuned into lip service, it can get wild. But but there's more to it. And of course, people might take the name and think that it's just about the sexual crazy conversation that you have, but there is more to the word to the name lip service.
Lip service is really a political term, and so we just wanted to play like on the name lip service because we do have deeper conversations. But I think, and this is true in a lot of different spaces, the moments that go viral are the really crazy ones. So if somebody is not really watching your show and a loyal listener, they won't know that. So they might see some of these big viral moments and be like, that's all you guys talk about. Because the truth is that sometimes people chase that, right? Sometimes people, and I really don't like when people always try to get a headline. You can tell when somebody's doing that in an interview. When they ask like a crazy question because they know it's going to go viral and then they keep on going with it, or they try to get a reaction from a guest. I've always tried to have natural conversations where people felt safe to say what it is, not to have a gotcha moment. And so even with lip service, we've had ministers on, we've had all different kinds of people on that show. And we really take it to where anybody wants to go. And sometimes we're very surprised by the things that people say. But the point of that show was about great conversation that people have in real life. And I think that it can be really taboo to talk about relationships and sex in the way that we do. But then I also think as a black woman, people look at it differently too. I really like Chelsea Handler, but I felt like there's a lot of things, and I told her that she actually did lip service too. There's a lot of things that she could get away with saying that I feel like, it would be an issue if we said it. And even Call Her Daddy podcast. That podcast does extremely well. It's a white woman talking about sex and being able to ask those questions. And we can do something like that, and people will be like, oh, this is disgusting. And so I really want to erase that taboo and give people a safe space to have these conversations and not feel like they're being judged.
So for someone out there that may be asking themselves, like, okay, they might not have the reach that you may have. They may not have, all of these celebrity contacts in their phones, where they could just reach out to someone. But when you started 8 years ago, did you feel as if you needed celebrity guests to be on there to be able to draw that traffic to your podcast? Or did you feel like, let me be my authentic self, let me have conversations, and then every now and then pop in, special guests just to keep it going?
And I do want to say, I didn't have the reach that I had when I first started. And so I think when anybody starts, unless you're already a celebrity in another space, no one will have that reach at first. And so I remember when I first started lip service, when I was on Sirius, my first guest was it was Carmen. She had a baby with Nods, and she had a book out, and so people didn't know her like that. And so, and even before that, it started with ordinary conversations with people that was like the receptionist at this place, or a doctor and a lawyer, and we were having conversations on the radio that people didn't. It was more for people to eavesdrop on what we talked about behind closed doors. And so I didn't have celebrities on at first. And it grew to a space where a lot of people wanted to come there. And even now, everybody that comes on the show isn't always a celebrity. Sometimes it's somebody that we just think is interesting, we have something going on, or we feel like it's educational, and so we'll do that too. But I feel like it's important to know that the hosts are the most important thing for something to be successful. I love when there's a podcast where, like, Don't Call Me White Girl. She has a podcast, and she will literally just sit there and talk to you. And you feel like this is so interesting for me to listen to. And she doesn't have to have a celebrity guest on. She can really sit there and talk. And so I think those are always the best, where we're prepared, we have things that we want to discuss, we know how to present things, and then you feel like a connection to the person who's talking. That's more important than anything.
And also going back to what you said, because of course everybody gets into podcast, of course at first, they do have no restrictions, say what you want to say, be able to talk about things you want to talk about, but then you start to figure out that you can monetize. And when you got to that space to where you started making money, how important was it for you to be able to attach yourself as well as the podcast to certain brands and sponsorships that reflected exactly what you were all about from start?
Well, to be honest, I was spending money at first. And because it was my podcast, even when a little bit of money would come in sometimes, I paid everybody else. Because when you're starting something and you see the vision of what it can be, if you don't do that, it's a hobby, right? But if you are seeing a vision of where it can be and you're investing into it, then that's something that you really are trying to create a brand. And so for me, it was important that other people got paid, and and I had other jobs and streams of income. And I know people who have started off with a job and then they've managed to get their podcast to a point where that's what they can do full time. And if that's your goal, then you really need to make sure that you're very consistent about putting out your podcast when you're supposed to, because your audience is going to look forward to it. Even if you have 50 people listening to your podcast, if it doesn't come out on the Tuesday that it's supposed to come out, you can lose people in that way. And the main thing is you want things to grow organically and to build up that following. And so I remember when we first started monetizing, I was so happy to get, I think our first check might have been like $3,500 for the month. And I was like, yes, we made it. Like, we're finally getting some money. And it literally took years. But I also think there's a lot of opportunities to do things in a non-traditional way, where I've seen people work with local businesses. And so depending on what your podcast is about, maybe there's a pizza place that can come in and they can cater for your guests, and you can get a little check, and then they can get some content that they're able to post. And I think because I have a marketing background, that really helped me come up with ideas that were unique and out of the box, and to help me keep things going. Even I remember this hotel resort wanted us to come and do our podcast live there, and so that would have been a way for us to monetize that too, where they would be able to promote that as an event for people to come to. So I think also being able to approach people with ideas that might be interesting for them instead of waiting for people to come to you or thinking that you need to sign on with a company right away. I was just looking at Cameron and Mix. They have their sports show that they did, and they started out doing that themselves and filming it. They got an 8-figure deal now. And that's from them being consistent, from them investing their own money. Even stand-up comedians like Joe Coy, he started doing his stand-up specials, filming them because Netflix didn't want to buy it, and he filmed it himself, and now he owns it, and he made way more money that way. And so you have to look at it like, I don't need somebody to get behind me right now. What I want to do is build my podcast into a space where people will want to support it, and then now I can command more money.
So even in that space that you were in, as far as getting that type of money, and when you first got the $3,500 check, but now where you at now, of course you have a lot of outside businesses. You're an entrepreneur on top of all of these other great things. You have your own coffee. How are you able to take your outside businesses and use them within your podcast?
So even I had a pressed juice company, so we would do the mixed drinks with the pressed juices every time we had Deleon sponsor for a period of time, and so just certain things like that. With the coffee company, by the way, we just got into Target yesterday, so that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Coffee uplifts, you want to look it up. But even at iHeart now, right? Way Up With Me is a podcast also, and so DeLonghi that makes the coffee machines, they actually just came on board. They've never sponsored with our station before, and so they're giving me a personal coffee machine for me to put in the studio tomorrow when I get back, and so I'll be able to make drinks. And they're bringing a barista for the first day, but I know how to use it, and that's actually the coffee machine that I use at home. That's Yolista. And so for me, that's exciting when we can also work with brands that make sense for us, that we really love in real life, that we can collaborate. And so with the coffee company, there's that. I'm doing the Wine and Food Festival in New York with iHeart, and that's also going to have my coffee there. And I think DeLonghi is teaming up with us on that as well. And so I just love when those worlds can collide, and it can also be beneficial to the other person, because there's certain brands that I work with. Black Girl Sunscreen, when I first started Way Up with Angela Yee, that was the first sponsor that we got for the show. And that was because I used the product years ago and just posted it as a shout out. I didn't know them. It wasn't anything I got paid to do. And as soon as we launched the show, the owner, Shantae Lundy, reached out and was like, we want to work with her, because she posted our product before anybody was using it. And ZipRecruiter, I work with them. I have, brick and mortar locations, always looking for employees. And so that's a natural collaboration for me. And so anything that I can do that I feel like I really use this product, I can speak to it outside of work, I feel comfortable telling my audience, I use this, it's great, it's amazing, and they're excited that I really use it. I never want to work with brands that I feel like I don't feel comfortable standing behind this.
And I feel like that's important, because I think anybody can dangle a check in front of someone's face. And of course, the average person that they, starting a podcast and trying to figure out how can I make money, I'm using my time, I'm using my efforts, and I'm not getting anything out of it, and it can hinder the overall brand of the podcast.
Yeah, that's your credibility right there. And that's important to me. Your reputation and your credibility is on the line depending on who you align yourself with. So that is something that I don't want people to not trust me. Oh, she's clearly doing this for the check. And I never want to feel like that. And I understand for a lot of people who are just starting something, we do need a check. And so that's important as well. And I understand the importance of finance and making sure that you have the capital that's necessary to get something going and to do it the way that you want to. But I also want to say you have to be patient and you do have to think this is something that has a long lasting effect. And so you never want to do something that could come back to haunt you or even end up costing you money when you thought you were making money. And even, I was talking earlier about chasing these viral moments. Remember that these things live on forever. And so sometimes we want to do something or say something outrageous. We've seen this happen. And it's just important to know that you have to stand behind what you say. So 5 years from now, you might be in a space that you couldn't even imagine. Well, am I proud of what I have? Because we see people pulling things off the internet, trying to erase things that they've done in the past, losing situations and deals because of that. And so the best way to do that is to prevent it from happening in the first place.
But with that being said, how important is diversity when it comes to your podcast? So just starting a podcast in general, of course, nobody wants to be stuck in this box. So where it's like, I'm only stuck on this one particular audience and you're trying to figure out, well, why is it not working for everybody? How important is the diversity? Was it diversity for you?
I think it's important to know where you want to grow to. Because if you have something that's very niche and an audience that you're like, this is specifically who I'm targeting, and you know that and you know the growth potential in that, then, I think it's important to not sometimes chase something that isn't natural for what you want to do. But, if you want to think about, okay, I want this to appeal to everybody, because everything doesn't appeal to everybody. So if you're a particular person and you're like, this is who I'm catering to, this is my audience, and I know that. But if you want to grow from there, yes, diversity is definitely important. I also think another great thing is collaborating with other people who have podcasts. And there's a lot of times that we brought people onto the podcast, they have their own platform, and I go on other podcasts because they have their own platform. So let's help each other in that way, right? Let's make sure that we bring other people on so that we can uplift them. And then let's look for the same in return and make sure that we're bringing something to the table as well.
And those that may not know, again, that Way Up with Angela Yee is a podcast. So going from radio to, well, Sirius Radio to radio, then to podcast, and how easy was that transition for you as far as figuring out, okay, I'm going to be able to use my podcast to be able to promote my radio show to be able to promote my podcast. Like, how was that transition for you?
I think what iHeart has been really great at is making sure that they're in the forefront as far as people's listening habits, right? Because if you think about it, when we first started the Breakfast Club, we were on in just New York. And then they put us on the weekends, syndicated in other cities. And that was to get people acclimated to us being there. And then slowly we got syndicated. Our first market was Milwaukee, was the first place we got syndicated in. And then it grew from there. They saw what podcasting was doing. And they were like, okay, we want to make this available for people to listen to on the app. The iHeart app does really well. I think most people might even look at our shows not even as a radio show, just as a podcast. Yeah, they'll look at the Breakfast Club like, oh, I listen to the podcast. Or they'll listen to Way Up with Angela Yee, not even thinking this is an actual radio show that comes on, live in these different cities. And so